Hi, my name is Alice Campbell, and thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how easy it is to get into roasting. So I'm not going to be explaining a lot about why we roast, what the different roast levels are and stuff. I'm just going to show how quickly and easily you can get set up with roasting using something that's very accessible and very inexpensive, which is a used popcorn popper. The popper I'm going to be roasting on today is a venerable West Bend Poppery I. These are very easy to find at flea markets, thrift stores, garage sales, buy and sells, and really they are pretty widely considered to be one of the best roasters for roasting coffee. Now this is for a couple reasons, one of them being that it's a 1500 watt popper, which a lot of the new ones are like 1000 watts, 900 watts, 1100 watts. So 1500 watts is a lot of power, which means that you can roast more coffee. As well, once we crack into this thing in the modification series, you'll really see that it's very well suited to modification because of how easily accessible all of the components are inside. What I have here is what I would consider a minimum viable roasting setup. So I have the roaster on my stove and I have a really strong range hood. If you have a range hood that vents to the inside of the house through a filter, or if it doesn't vent very strong, I suggest roasting either outdoors or in a highly ventilated area with a fan blowing the smoke outside. Roasting coffee, even in small quantities, produces a surprising amount of smoke and you want to get rid of that. Now the other thing I use in this setup is to catch, there's a skin that comes off the beans called chaff, and to catch that chaff I just use a bucket. You could use a cardboard box or some other setup, and with the roaster a little bit will come out the vents here, but it'll just blow into this box and it'll catch most of the chaff, otherwise you'll have a huge mess. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add some beans in here. Now I'll give you a little bit better view. But on this roaster, I find that I should be able to hold about 100 grams or a quarter pound of beans. Now on the Poppery, there's a little line on the inside here, and I found that to be a pretty reliable indicator for how much beans you can put in. But the biggest thing is you just want to make sure that the beans are able to circulate adequately when you fill it up. All right, so we've got this loaded up with beans. Start the timer. We're going to see how long it takes to roast the beans. Now at this stage, this is largely steam coming off the beans because they're going through the drying phase. Alright, 3 minutes here, we're going into getting pretty dark on the beans here. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we're starting to hit first crack here pretty soon. So you're about to hear the beans go through first crack, which is an audible popping sound caused by a rapid expansion of carbon dioxide building up in the beans. It really sounds quite like popcorn popping. Now, most people would say that you have to have the beans go completely through first crack to be drinkable, and that would be considered to be a very light roast. And now you'll hear the last few snaps of first crack. Now you're going to hear the first few snaps of second crack. Listen carefully, it's a lot higher pitched and way more faint of a sound than first crack. And I'm going to end my roast at the beginning of second crack, which is about a medium dark roast. And you can see I'm just putting them in a colander here and shaking them. Really, you want to get them cooled down as quickly as possible. You might want to use a fan or something. Another technique I'll use is putting them in a metal pan, and that really just gets them spread out and gets some surface area exposed to cool them off. And you can see here that the bin does quite a good job of collecting the chaff. So there you go. It only took us about 7 minutes to roast a quarter pound of coffee. Now, generally speaking, we'd want to try and stretch that out. So that's why I'm going to be doing this modification series, and we're going to go over a couple different techniques that we might try to extend that roast out a little bit. We'd really want to stretch that roast out to about 11 or 12 minutes to get the desired characteristics out of a cup of coffee. But don't get me wrong, this is a totally viable method of roasting coffee and would be very drinkable. A lot of people, when they start roasting coffee, are really surprised at how delicious fresh roasted coffee is, because like a lot of foods, it goes stale after a while. So if you can imagine, once it's ground up, sits on the shelf for a couple weeks, couple months, a year, it really loses a lot of those aromatics that are volatile compounds that evaporate out of the coffee. So the one thing you'll notice with fresh roasted coffee is that it'll always have this insanely rich, deep aroma and a lot of characteristics that you won't see in coffee that's generally mass produced or not roasted locally. Thanks for joining me today. Over the next short while, I'm going to be releasing a series on how we're going to modify the Poppery popcorn popper to really extend out that roast and give us a lot more control. First, we're going to monitor the temperatures of the roast, and then we're going to progress through manual control right up to fully computer automated roasting. If you like what you've seen here and you'd like to stick around for some more coffee roasting related videos, as well as some general making videos, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks for joining me.